Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, to easily the most ambitious video on my channel so far. In this video I aim to give a few tips to completely new players on how to get better at RB. I have just over 500 hours in this game, not much compared to most content creators out there. But you'll find I haven't forgotten what it was like to be a completely new player with no experience whatsoever. I aim to convey the knowledge that I have attained through all my suffering, so that you won't have to do the same. With that said, I hope you find this video helpful, and let's get started. Time for a physics lesson. When you climb, you're converting the chemical energy of fuel into kinetic energy, the speed which you go forwards by, and potential energy, in this case, altitude. The higher you go, the more potential energy you have, and you can convert that potential energy into kinetic energy at any time by diving. Having the altitude advantage puts you in charge of the engagement, as your opponent has to either climb to meet you, thereby losing kinetic energy and slowing them down, meaning they're easier targets while you just get faster by diving, or they dodge your fire and try to dive away, which means they pose no threat to you. They're just fighting for their lives. They are the hunted, you are the hunter. If you miss, just climb away. The speed gained by diving means you should be able to fly past their guns' range in no time, although that depends on the aircraft you're shooting at, how much you dived, your plane's energy retention and their aim. Once you're out of their range, just dive at them again until you get the kill. Of course, not all aircrafts have good climb rate, which is why I recommend side climbing for most aircraft. Instead of heading straight at your enemy head-on, fly towards the side and climb at an angle, so that you have more time to build a greater altitude advantage once you reach the battlefield. Knowing your aircraft's strengths and weaknesses is essential to winning an engagement. If you don't know your aircraft, you're flying into battle blind, and you'll probably end up asking too much of your plane, resulting in your demise. The War Thunder Wiki is great for learning a bit about how your aircraft holds up, and I highly recommend using it. I will explain what to expect of your fighter, depending on the nation, until at least as far as I have played. Japanese fighters tend to focus on maneuverability. No aircraft can outearn the fierce Japanese A6M0 at any rank, so turning away from your opponents and baiting them into trying to turn fight you is the best tactic with their fighters. Their Model 1 cannons are notoriously hard to aim though, so watch out for that. And Japanese aircraft are not what you'd call survivable. German fighters excel at energy fighting. At rank 2 you'll gain access to the fearsome Minengeschoss rounds for their 20mm cannons, which make them some of the best armed aircraft at their BR. German aircraft usually have excellent climb rates, good speed in a dive, fearsome armament and passable maneuverability. You won't be out-earning any zeros in a German fighter, but it can outmaneuver most of its American counterparts in the hands of a skilled pilot. Soviet fighters tend to be jack of all trades, master of none. Yaks boast good maneuverability, although outclassed by Spitfires and Zeros. SHV Yak cannons at rank 2 with an excellent rate of fire, passable speed in a dive and a decent climb rate. And the lag and la lines of aircraft tend to be more akin to German aircraft, being more focused on energy fighting. At rank 1 it's worth mentioning, though, that Soviets get the I-15S, which are in my opinion the best biplanes at the rank, with fearsome armament, good maneuverability and passable speed. British fighters tend to be varied. The Spitfire line is very maneuverable, second only to the Zero, has a fantastic climb rate, mediocre speed and passable armament, although the Hispano cannons on later Spitfires are notoriously bad. The Hurricane is rather slow, but very tough and quite maneuverable as well. The Typhoon is a heavy beast, which boasts an insanely powerful engine and a solid climb rate, passable maneuverability albeit with armament lean much to be desired. Swedish fighters are a mixed bag, some like the J-20, not the Chinese one, are maneuverable, some like the J-22 are jack of all trades, some like the A-21A are suited for energy fighting. but all are very well armed. Fear a Swedish aircraft and or head-on, they can soak up remarkable amounts of damage and dish it right back. Chinese are a mix of existing vehicles, so there's no trends followed by them, and American fighters are usually the fastest aircraft at their rank. Nothing can catch an American fighter in a dive. They're well armed too. The .50 caliber machine guns are quite good at setting enemies aflame. Their maneuverability leaves much to be desired, but most have solid climb rates, although side climbing is definitely necessary with most. Situational awareness in almost any game is extremely important, and War Thunder is no different. Knowing where you stand in comparison to your enemies is crucial in combat, as it enables you to prioritize and assess the threat level posed by your opponents. The biggest threat is an aircraft higher than you and behind you, and the juiciest target is one lower and in front of you. However, it isn't straightforward to get this information, unless you know how, which is why I will explain a few crucial keybinds in the game. Holding down C enables you to look around with your mouse. This is crucial in assessing where you are in respect to your enemies, and I cannot stress how useful it has been to me. Next is the lock target keybind, which enables you to lock onto any target on your screen as long as they're marked in red. This may not sound useful until you factor in the next keybind, which is tracking target enemy, which tracks any enemy target you have locked, which is very useful in 1v1 combat situations, as it means you don't lose sight of your enemy. The mouse lock keybind can be found in controls, common and basic, as can the target lock keybind. The tracking camera is available in the aircraft section of controls. I have set mouse look as the default C, lock target as X and track target as T, but you can set it obviously to whatever you wish. Your HUD giving accurate information and knowing how to interpret it is very important. I will explain my ideal settings and what everything on your HUD means. On the top left, you'll find throttle percentage, EAS, which is speed, altitude, cannon ammo and temperature readings. Setting your speed to EAS indicator instead of the default SPD is recommended, as EAS is a more accurate readout dependent on what altitude you're at. You can change this in settings, main parameters, air battle settings and indicated airspeed. You can show your gun ammo and temperature readouts by going to settings, main parameters, battle interface, and fuel indication and ammo indication. This section also highlights important critical information such as fuel and water leaks. On the bottom left you have your chat, which you must never ignore. In the same place is your damage indicator, which shows what components of your aircraft are damaged and by how much. Yellow is little, orange medium, red bad and black horrible. You can check this in 3D by holding O. Below this is the ground units indicator, indicating how many ground units each team has left. Just below your aircraft and left of the center you'll get important information on what your aircraft is doing. For example, when extending your flaps, it will show you what position your flaps are in. It also shows important information such as your engine dying and why, oil or water overheating and more. If you see text there, make sure to read it. The top of the screen is your victory indicator, red being enemy team and blue being yours. Whichever team's bar is smaller is the losing team. Just below it is where you get flashing warnings such as G overloads, critical speed, retract gear or flaps, etc. Too many G-forces result in your pilot temporarily blacking out, and going too fast with flaps extended or gear down results in them ripping off. Just underneath is your crosshair. If you did the tutorial, you should know that placing your crosshair directly where the enemy is means you'll miss, as aircraft are moving targets. Therefore, you have to aim at where you think the enemy aircraft will be when the bullet reaches them. This varies between planes, as different bullets from different guns move at different speeds. A pro tip relating to the crosshair, it actually has an indicator related to your gun's jamming. Many new pilots find themselves jamming their guns frequently, and this red meter around your crosshair should stop that. If you keep firing after the meter around your crosshair pulsates, your guns will jam. The top right shows your minimap, which is fairly self-explanatory. This is possibly the most useful one in combat. Flaps increase the lift generated at the cost of speed. The more your flaps are extended, the more maneuverability gained. Flaps do slow you down, however, and they rip off at speed, but they can massively increase low-speed maneuverability. They can stop you from stalling too and help you be much more agile than your enemies. I've been able to outmaneuver American fighters with just over 20's time turns in the U-87 Stuka with gun pods, which the stat card shows as having over 30 seconds. The slower you are, the more you extend your flaps to give you that extra bit of maneuverability. That additional 10 to 20% of maneuverability in combat can make all the difference in a sticky situation. Using flaps in combat has improved my flight performance so significantly I cannot express it. Well, that concludes this video. There is of course much more to learn, and a lot comes from experience. I cannot teach it all, but I have taught as much as I thought was possible and reasonable for one video. I hope you found this useful. Thank you for watching.